If you're looking at a rental posting like this that's way under market, you're probably looking at a rental scam. We know that the cost of rents in BC are at the highest they've ever been, with one bedrooms going for over $3,000 a month, which makes rental scams like these feel way worse. And when speaking to the experts, that housing crisis, that rental crisis, is what's making rental scams that much more prevalent and predatory.
Rental scams are they are almost affecting the most vulnerable. Someone who's looking for a new home. Rental properties are, hard to come by, especially ones that fit your budget and what your needs might be. And the reality is that this is a big ticket item. We look at the median dollar loss, which is kind of that midpoint. It was $1,600 in 2022. That's a lot of money for most people, especially those who are either going to a new location or, maybe traveling for school even. When you're preying on people who are really uprooting themselves, that is incredibly unfortunate.
So are rental scams actually more common?
It is on the rise across the nation, and there is a housing market crunch across the nation, right? Especially in the metros. And we need to be mindful that as people move, especially if they're moving from a different province to another location, they're not always there in person, and that creates a lot of opening and gaps for scammers to come in.
Can you tell us an example of a rental scam?
We recently saw a consumer who was moving from another province, and so they were coming from Alberta, they were coming to Vancouver, and they were looking for new space for themselves, their partner, and their dog. And they thought they had found it, right? So they had a conversation with the suspected property manager. They saw pictures. They did a bit of Google searching themselves. They did a little bit of due diligence. They looked up the photos, and the photos matched the property address. And so they thought, this seems great. The suspected property manager even offered to pick them up from the airport. So they sent over what seemed normal, right? First month's rent, security deposit, pet deposit, and thought everything was great. As they got closer to the time and they were trying to arrange that pickup or, get more information, they lost contact. So they weren't picking up, they weren't responding, and all of a sudden they realized they'd been duped. So this is really that stereotypical example of you have to see what you're purchasing. You really want to do your due diligence to the next level. And there were a number of red flags within this story that are hidden in plain sight.
Let's talk about some of those red flags. How can we avoid them?
If you do a reverse image search and you look at these images, are they popping up in more than one location? That's a red flag. In this last story, they were using a personal email. So they sent their security deposit to a personal email. That's a red flag. If they're working for a formal company, they're going to have a legitimate email address that goes back to that website. On the contract, they had a GST number. Again, seems legitimate. But if you go to the Government of Canada website and you review that GST number, it's actually no longer active. It's not for that company. And so you really want to do an extreme level of due diligence. But the thing here that is number one and paramount is you have to send someone to see a space in person. So if you can't, come into town by yourself, send a trusted friend, a family member, a colleague, anyone that you trust to go see the space and have that conversation face to face so that the person you're dealing with is legitimate and the space is legitimate.
If you've ever been affected by a rental scam, you can go to the Better Business Bureau's Scam Tracker tool. Maurice, Katz, CBC News, Vancouver.